my rays of sunshine, and how are you today? I'm blessed. I hope you all are blessed. Today's a beautiful day, 80 degrees, hot day. Hair's up, hot day. Sleeveless shirt, hot day. I'm enjoying it though. I'm enjoying it. Been real busy, but it's a great day. So, today we have part 2 of my story. And I want to thank you all for your comments. And from my last video, part 1. And I just want to let you know that I'm sharing my story to show you that yes, you can have a difficult life, but by the grace of God, you can be set free from that life. You don't have to follow in those footsteps of the people that abused you, and you can just reach such high places by having God in your life. So, like I said before, I'm not telling you this for you to feel sorry for me, to have pity on me. That's not the idea here. The idea is to show you what I went through, my trials, my tribulations, and what God has brought me through. I mean, I am so much at peace right now. I am the happiest I've been in my entire life. And it's all because I trusted God. I had faith and I prayed. And as you'll see through part 1 and part 2, God never left me. Did I realize that at the time? No. Looking back and looking what I have overcome and the different things that happened to me, yes, God was always with me. He was always carrying me. And remember, our lives are written in the great book of life. And God has plans for all of us. All we have to do is let Him in so He can work on us and help us to find eternal joy. Joy is a gift from God, and peace is a gift from God. And I have those things now. So, in this video, I'm going to be going through the ages of 15 to the ages of 32. And it's not always going to be easy parts for me, even though I've been delivered from that part of my life. And I have forgiven those that treated me badly. I have been, even though you're delivered, you still are human. You still have thoughts and pains and, triggers. Or, I don't have PSTD. I don't have that. But certain thoughts and triggers and bringing up certain things do cause me pain. And it's still hard to talk about, but it just is a need that I feel that God wants me to share what I went through, because somebody out there is going through it, has gone through it, and God just wants you to know He's there for you. There is a light at the end of that tunnel. So, I got my drink. Got my little box of Kleenex. And we're ready to go. Whew. Breathe, breathe, breathe. All right. When I was 15, that's, if you saw part 1, you'll get up to there. That's when my grandmother, who raised me, decided that was enough. I was disrupting the family. So, she signed me away, literally. And I was married off. I was married to a man If I was at 15, he was 25. So, at that point in my life, because of all the things I'd been through, I was actually excited about, okay, I'm going to get married. I'm going to move out of this house. I'm going to leave all these troubles behind me. Well, I didn't exactly leave all the troubles behind me, and I got new ones. But I was excited about leaving one place, and I just knew I was going to find happiness at this other place. Well, we were married. A month after we were married. Now remember, I'm talking the hills of North Carolina, like 20 miles from the South Carolina border in the mountains. Well, he decided we were moving. Okay, it's okay. Well, we did move. We moved to McLean, Virginia, which is a suburb right outside of Washington, D.C. So you can imagine, you take this simple little country girl and put her in a big city. I mean, I'd never seen interstates and roads, and it's just, oh my goodness, the confusion. And I was just thinking, how am I going to survive? I don't know how to survive in the city. I don't know, you know. So we moved up, got an apartment in McLean, Virginia. He had a friend, so his friend was our roommate. He had a job. His friend worked at the same company, so they both had the same job, same company. And he got me a job as the receptionist, answering phones, scheduling things, and the receptionist. So, at 15, I was working. Full-time job. Did that. Things weren't so bad. I was just so fascinated at things. Like I said, that's right outside of Washington, D.C. It was just, I mean, everything was just wow. Wow. So, first 6 months were good. He was a decent man. First 6 months, I didn't feel like I was mistreated. But then, and I guess it's because of the area, I don't know. He'd always drank. And from my past, I was raised by a bunch of alcoholics. So, I didn't drink. And I'd swore I'd never drink because I didn't want that done. Or I didn't want to do that, what alcoholics do to other people. So he drank, but, I mean, I don't know if I call him an alcoholic, because he never got violently, drunk or destructive drunk like I was used to. But he did get into drugs. I guess it was the area. He started smoking marijuana, and then he started doing cocaine. Cocaine's a nasty drug. Nasty drug. It can change a person overnight. Well, the first time that he put my head through a wall, caught me totally off guard. I hadn't seen violence in him. Now, I'm assuming, and I don't know, that was the cocaine speaking. But we did okay. He was working, I was working. I did find out that that was a lot more expensive area than the area I'd come from in the country. But we had a nice apartment. Had everything I needed. I got to decorate it nice. I mean, it was everything that I wanted. Well, his drug use was getting worse. It was getting really bad. It was getting to the point where he was spending so much money on cocaine that it was affecting our bills, rent, light, food, and everything else. So I'm like, okay, is this what I'm in for the rest of my life? Well, then I got pregnant. Now, granted, you're talking to someone who, on her wedding night, had no idea about sex. Had no idea about relations between a husband and a wife. So that was all new. And here I find myself 16 and pregnant. Okay. Scared to death. Didn't know nothing. Hadn't been around anybody during my life that was pregnant or had a new baby. So, tried to take care of myself the best I could. You know, go to the doctor, do what the doctor says, prenatal vitamins, this and that. And I didn't drink and I didn't do drugs, so. And his drug use and drinking was getting worse. Well, it was July. And we couldn't afford the apartment anymore. We couldn't. We couldn't keep up with the bills. He lost his job because of the drugs. And naturally, because he lost his job, I lost my job. So, we moved to Richmond, Virginia. That's where his mother was and where he was from. So we moved in with his mother, and we had the top, had a 2-story house. We had the top 2 bedrooms upstairs. So we sold everything we could before we moved, you know, just to get as much money as we could, because here I was, you know, could have a baby in a couple months. So his mother was, she never mistreated me per se, but she never was loving towards me. There was always that tension. But did the best I could. Did have contact with my grandparents again. I guess when you're broke, you're desperate. You know, anybody, if they can possibly help you. So I went back, and my grandmother and grandfather were still there. My father had left again, like he did when I was younger, and they didn't know where he was or anything about him, which was good for me, because as you know from part 1, he was not good in my life. So, believe it or not, she welcomed me. She did. She welcomed me with open arms. She was very excited that I was going to have a baby. We did know it was going to be a little girl, and she was just through the moon. So, she took us and bought us the bassinet and the clothes and the bottles and everything we'd need for a newborn. And I was very appreciative towards her. And I told her that. I mean, it meant a lot to me. At the time, I didn't know. I should have known and seen signals. But in the future, I found out why she was so excited. She wanted to take my little girl from me. Well, I wasn't like my parents. No, you're not getting my child, my baby girl. No. So, I had my 17th birthday on July 17th. And on July 21st, my daughter was born. So she was born right after my birthday. She was a complicated delivery. She was a cartwheel breech, whatever that means. 1 foot, just out, cord around her neck. So they had to do an emergency C-section. Okay. And the first time I'd ever been in a hospital. And I had to have that done, so. And this was back in 82. And you didn't get that cute little bikini line you get now. No, I was cut from belly button on down. So, but she was born. She was healthy, and she was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And I knew that that was my heart. I mean, the first time I saw her, oh my gosh. I can't express to you. I think that's the first time in my life I really felt love. Because I love this little girl. And I was going to do everything in my power to take care of her and keep her safe. So, Went home from the hospital. I'm all excited, you know. We had been collecting for about 8 months. Change in a change jar. I had one of those great big pickle jars. And we had been collecting change. So I was going to roll it up, change it in, cash it in, and get her the other things that she needed. Well, when I went to my husband to ask him where the change jar was and tell him what I wanted to do, he laughed at me. Okay, why are you laughing at me? Oh, I had to cash that in a couple months ago. Okay. Broke my heart. Not just that he'd taken the money, but the thought that I couldn't provide for my little girl. My stomach's turning now. I'm sorry. I had promised, you know, that I would, to the best of my ability, take care of this child. And I found one of the means that I had for getting, you know, the final touches on it was gone. So it did. It devastated me. It worried me. Well, a couple months went by. He got a job. And me and the baby were doing good. Now, my grandmother didn't really help me out after the initial buying of the gifts. And I found out, like I said, because I wanted a little girl. I was keeping my little girl. So, I did the best I could. She had what she needed. And with him working, it made things easier. Well, he stopped doing cocaine when we moved to Richmond. But he was still smoking marijuana and drinking. A lot. A lot. And I knew how much he made. But I knew what he brought home to contribute towards bills and things. There's a lot of money missing. But I'm 17. You know, he's 26, 27, 27. He's 10 years older than me, 27. You know, I'm just not in a position and didn't have the boldness that I have now. God has given me boldness now. And I didn't speak up. So, we're struggling, making it work. Well, he likes to go to parties. He has lots of friends. Almost every Friday and Saturday night, there were people over in our little upstairs rooms. I mean, I don't know how he got it by his mother. I don't know. I don't know. I guess he was the baby of the family. He had brother and sister, but he was the youngest. He must have got away with it. Because there was music playing. There was people drinking and smoking pot. And just constantly. And I even had times when I'd go in the other bedroom with my daughter just to rock her to sleep or try to keep her calm because the music was just so loud. And I didn't want her to breathe any of that marijuana smoke. None. So go over there, shut the door, and spend some time with her. But he was pretty wild. Had some friends in Virginia Beach. We'd go down there and party with them. And he loved to dance. Loved to dance. So there'd be a club down on Broad Street in Richmond. We'd go there, I think, like every other weekend. He loved to dance. I didn't dance. Never knew how. Just wasn't my cup of tea. So I'd sit at the table with my Pepsi and he'd drink and dance with every woman in there. Did that bother me? No. I don't know why. I mean, I never had a jealous side. It's just, he did his thing. Then I got pregnant again. Okay. Doing this again. Okay. I have a little girl. Not very old, just a few months old, and I'm pregnant again. So, this pregnancy was a little easier than the first one. Obviously, I mean, I knew what to expect and this and that. So then, when I was 19, I had my second daughter. My two daughters are 18 months apart. That's how close they are, 18 months apart. Well, I did the best I could. And his drinking increased. His marijuana use increased. His paycheck decreased. I finally found out that these supposed late nights of working, he was at the Topless Bar a couple miles away, drinking his paycheck, throwing his paycheck away to dancers, and smoking it away. Marijuana wasn't cheap. Still not cheap, but I mean, it wasn't. So, he'd come home late, and payday, he'd come home with hardly any money. Friends kept coming over, kept partying, kept this and that. At this point, I've got 2 babies that I'm trying to get to sleep and trying to do things with. And he's got all these people just coming in and out from Friday night to Sunday night. They'd spend the night, they'd crash because they passed out or this. I mean, it was just, and I just couldn't take it. I was going nuts. Well, my 18th birthday came around. And I can honestly tell you, he was good to me. When I was 18 years old, my husband gave me the first birthday cake I'd ever had in my entire life. Yeah. Never got one growing up. But on my 18th birthday, I had a birthday cake. He brought me flowers and a cake, and oh my gosh, I melted. I mean, it's just like, okay, there's good in him. I know there's good in him. We can find this good in him. Well, I tried. And the drug and drinking just got worse and worse. And like I said, the more time he was spending up at that Topless Bar, never knew whether he had a girlfriend or what, but I just knew that he wasn't home, and all of his money was disappearing. So our relationship was suffering because I know your vows when you're married, but it's hard to love a man who doesn't love his children, doesn't respect his wife. I mean, he talked about me pretty bad. That was the first time I heard the expression, my old lady. But he had no respect for me. And things were getting worse and worse and worse. So, when I was 18, I left. I left him. Packed up my personal belongings, my daughter's personal belongings, and went back to my grandmother. I had nowhere else to go. Well, my grandmother took me in with open arms. She took to my oldest daughter. Oh my gosh, did she take to my oldest daughter. Spoiled her rotten. My other daughter wouldn't give her the time of day. I'm like, okay, how can you do this to a child? My second daughter was just as beautiful, just as sweet, just as important as my first daughter. But she was very much so prejudiced towards my first daughter. Well, I was staying there, and I took my husband, got a divorce, and took him for child support. Well, back then, I was granted child support at $95 a week for 2 girls. Now, I will tell you this, and the whole time, from the start of my child support to the end of my child support, I got 3 payments. That's it. 3. He got up, moved, went out of state. I later found out he went to Alabama. But yeah. So, I had nothing. Now remember, I had dropped out of school in the 11th grade because I got married. So, I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I have no skills. I have no. So, I went and got me this big old thick paperback book that told me how to study for my GED. And I studied it. And I studied it. And I went and took the test and I passed it. So I got my GED. I said, okay, there we go. We've got something. So at least I have the high school equivalent so I can get a job. Well, at that point, a friend of my ex-husband's came into my life again. And I was naive. I was young. I was on the rebound. I guess I was looking for love. And he swept me off my feet, made me all kinds of promises, this and that and that and this. So we started dating. I was still living at my grandparents'. We started dating. And lo and behold, I got pregnant. No, back then, didn't know about birth control. Sorry, didn't use it, didn't know about it. So I got pregnant again. Okay, what am I going to do? I'm 19 years old, divorced, 2 girls, and I'm pregnant by my boyfriend. So, well, we were dating, but he was a strange one. He kept telling me, oh, I'll come see you, I'll come see you. Many a night, I sat on the front porch or looked out the window waiting for him because he said he was coming. He never came. I'm like, okay. Maybe this is the way it's supposed to be. So, I would see him occasionally. And I remember when I had to go to the hospital to have my son. It was my son. And he came to get me, to take me. And he said, well, we're not taking my car. We'll take, your car. I'm like, you want to drive my car? Okay. He goes, I don't want your water to break and you make a mess in my car. I'm like, whoa. Okay. He's getting ready to have a son. I'm getting ready to give birth to his son. And all he can think about is me making a mess in his car? Okay. In the memory banks. Just not enough. So, I had my son. Beautiful. 8.5-pound boy. 23 inches. Big boy. Big boy. And I had the perfect family. I mean, I'd always, from the time I was, younger, always told God, I want to get married and have 3 kids. I don't know why, but I always wanted 3 kids. So I had my 3 kids. And I was happy. Well, I entered back then in business school. And I took a word processing course. I said, okay, I'll learn these new computers and word processing and I can get a good job. So, I was taking my course and whatnot and studying because I wanted that little diploma. And I got sick. Violently sick. I had pneumonia. Not walking pneumonia. I had pneumonia. I was deathly ill. And at this point, I was taking care of my grandmother who'd gone into renal failure and had to go to dialysis 3 times a week. I was taking care of 3 children, the house, just going to school at night. And I got sick and I couldn't do it. So I called my boyfriend up and I told him, I said, can you take our son for about a week? So, he lived with his mother, so I knew she could. And I said, for about a week, so I can get myself healthy and strong and get over this. He did. Came and got the bassinet and all the things for him. Well, a week went by. Couldn't get in touch with him. Been trying to call him. Back then there weren't cell phones. Tried to call him. Wasn't getting an answer. Okay. So, I had my next door neighbor take me to his house where he lived with his mother. It was a rainy day. I'll never forget it. Well, I went and knocked on the door. I knew they were home. Not my boyfriend. He was at work. But I knew she was at home, and I knew my son was in there. Knocked on the door. Knocked on the door. Nothing. I'm like, okay, why is she not opening the door? Knocked on the front door, the back door, called out her name, told her what I just wanted. I want my son. Wouldn't open the door, wouldn't speak to me, nothing. At that point, I'm crying hysterically. So I get back home, and I put a call in to my boyfriend's work. Told him it was an emergency, and I had to talk to him because he worked at a factory, and they didn't like you to get personal calls. Well, he gets on the phone, and I say, what's going on? You haven't been talking to me? I went over to get my son, and your mother wouldn't even open the door? Oh, he's not your son anymore. What do you mean he's not my son anymore? Well, you abandoned him, so I took custody of him. The lawyers got all the paperwork. Whoa. What do you mean I abandoned him? Okay. Wasn't fangled in lawyers. Wasn't fangled in this and that. Didn't know what to do, so I'm just devastated. I said, I want to see my son. Oh, you have to wait till we get to court. Oh, my gosh. Okay. All right. So, about a week later, he comes over. Didn't bring my son, but he came over. Started whispering sweet nothings in my ear again. Oh, we're going to get married. We're going to become a family. Da-da-da-da-da. Suckered me in. So what did I do? He and his mother took me down to the Vital Statistics Bureau. Changed my son's name. So his last name was no longer my last name. It was my boyfriend's last name. But he told me if I do this, he's going to marry me. We're going to have a happy family. He just bought a house. Da-da-da. 19. I'm gullible. I fall for it. So, my son doesn't live with me. I have him every weekend, visitation through the courts. But my boyfriend keeps saying, we're going to get married. We're going to get married. I kept hanging on to that hope of having my own house with a husband and my 3 children. Well, we finally set a wedding date. And he moved me and the girls into the house he bought. He was living there. But my son still stayed with his mother. And I didn't quite understand that. And apparently my fiance, didn't want to be bothered with the baby. I mean, we'd get him sometimes, keep him for the weekend or whatnot. It blew my mind. So, we had our wedding date. I'm all excited. A wedding, not just going to the courthouse. So, went out, ordered invitations and everything, and I was going to church. So, I had the church booked, the reception hall booked, everything. So, the invitations came in. They were beautiful. They were gorgeous. Well, 6 weeks before your wedding, you're supposed to mail your invitations. So I went to my fiance and said, okay, I need your list of names so we can mail out the invitations. He goes, well, I think we should wait on the wedding. Totally deflated. Totally. So, we lived together. My son spent more time with me. And I raised my girls. I had a good job because I got my word processing diploma. And then I'd gone back to school for small business management. And I got that diploma. So I had a pretty good job. I was doing pretty good. Taking care of the kids and whatnot. Well, then, I don't know what caused it, whether it's because I had a good job, I was making good money, or what, but he said, okay, let's get married. Let's set a date. I said, no, we're not setting a date. We're going to go talk to my pastor. So we went and talked to the pastor, and, you know, he became active in the church. At that time, I was teaching Sunday school, and I was doing the Wednesday night missions. They were GAs. I was teaching GAs. And my son was in RAs, and he was active with my son in his RA group, and active going to church. Didn't go on Sundays, but Wednesday night, he was there with me. And so, things looked good. So, we had our wedding. Beautiful wedding. I mean, storybook wedding to me. I didn't wear a white dress. I wore a beautiful blue periwinkle silk two-piece set, skirt and jacket. Jacket was lace overlaid. Oh my gosh. That was the most beautiful I felt in my entire life. Beautiful wedding. Wonderful wedding. Well, after that, things were pretty good. He was distant. He didn't mistreat my girls. And he didn't mistreat me. But I still hadn't found the love that I was looking for. Well, then I was in a terrible car accident. I was coming home from work, and I got rear-ended. I got rear-ended so hard that it pushed my car into the car in front of me, who got pushed him in front of the car in front of me. Just a very bad accident. Totaled my car. Just totally messed me up. My back was jacked up. Broke my nose. My knee. I was all messed up. So, not only did I have physical injuries, but I had emotional injuries. I mean, I just knew I'm never going to drive again. Because I remember I got hit. I looked up in the rearview mirror, and as I was doing that, I hit the car in front of me. And it was just very traumatic for me. So I went through months and months of physical therapy and counseling and this and that. Well, obviously I wasn't working. I couldn't work. I could barely walk. Hired a lawyer because the lady that hit me didn't have insurance. So I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So I hired a lawyer. One of those accident lawyers, that don't get paid unless you do and takes their fee out of your settlement. And I was struggling because I had no income. I had no nothing. And so my prescriptions, food, anything I needed, heat packs, anything that I needed, I had to turn to my husband for. Well, I didn't know this wasn't the way husbands and wives worked. But he had this notebook. And every time he'd spend a penny on something for me, like I said, a prescription, heat packs, food for the house, anything, he'd write it down in this notebook. And he told me when I got my settlement from the accident, I was going to pay him back everything in this notebook. Well, at first, I'm, okay, well, maybe this is the way husbands and wives work their finances. Well, it got really bad. Because I think, about 9 months out of work and still recouping. And the book kept growing and growing. And, he'd give me money to buy groceries. And get things for the house, but they all went in that little book. Well, one day, he came home from work, and he brought home Arbys. He brought home Arbys for him and my son. I don't hold that against my son. No. But Arbys for him and my son. And I looked at him, I said, well, what are the girls going to eat? He said, there's macaroni and cheese in there you can cook. Boom. There went everything. Everything. I'm like, here we go again. I can't take care of my children. I can't give them what they deserve. I mean, I was a very hands-on mother. I did all the cleaning. Yes, I spoiled my children. And later, I'll regret that, as you'll hear. But I was just distraught. So I talked to my pastor. And I told him what was going on. And what I'd been going through. Well, when he heard about the book, he was appalled. He said, no, that's not the way a loving marriage works. I said, oh. And then I told him the way he was treating, me and the girls and whatnot, and what he was doing, and how he was acting. And my pastor said, no, that's a poisonous relationship. So I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? I went from one to another. So I put up with it. It was Christmas. Never forget this. Our church had White Christmas, where you took canned goods and food and wrapped it in white tissue paper, and you'd have the big processional and put it under the big tree in front of the church, and they'd donate it to the homeless and needy in the community. We'd taken our little food up, put under the tree, and we're circling back around to sit in the pew, our seat. Well, Pastor put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, how are things going? I said, the little book is growing. His coldness is growing. And my pastor said, I don't do this, but it's time for you to leave. I'm like, okay. Did my pastor just tell me to leave my husband? Okay. I think that's what he did. So, I thought about it. I prayed on it. And one thing that my husband did have that he enjoyed doing was running slot cars at a hobby store up the road. And took my son. He took my daughters on Saturday. And when I got better, I would start going on Saturdays, to watch them run slot cars. They had fun. They had children's races, and they would all win little ribbons, and they were so happy. Well, I enjoyed myself up there. All the guys talked to me. We talk about the cars. We talk about racing. 'Cause I'm a big Earnhardt fan. And we talk about NASCAR and slot car racing and this and that. I mean, it was a blast. Well, the manager really took a liking to my girls. And he'd give them free track time for practice and this and that, Gave my son too, but he really took to the girls. And we just started talking, and, I told him how much I appreciated it and whatnot. And we became friends. They had a big state race up there at the hobby store. And he asked me if I wanted to earn some extra money and come up there and help him run the counter and the register. I said, sure. It was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I said, sure. So I did, and I had a blast. I've always had an outgoing personality. Always what I think is a pretty good sense of humor. So, man, I fit right in. It was wonderful. It was great. Loved it. So, started taking the kids up there and doing that more and more. We'd go up on Wednesday night to watch the adults run. And That went on for a few months. And then one night, I don't remember what was said exactly, but the manager of the hobby store said something to me. And he said, I want you to come up Saturday before we open. Okay. Duh. I'm lightheaded. I'm okay. So, come Saturday, I went up there before they opened to see what he needed me to help him with. Because I knew I had run the inventory system. I could run the races and the hardware and the register and knew all the products and could run the counter. So, I didn't know what he had. Well, went to the door. It was locked, of course, because they hadn't opened. So, he let me in. And there was some tables up front, scheduled pit tables. So I went in, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? So I'm just leaning against one of the tables and this and that. And he pulls out a red rose from behind his back. And I'm like, okay, I'm not looking for love. I'm not looking for nobody. This makes me so emotional. He held the rose out to me. I took the rose. I touched his hand. You can believe me or not. It doesn't matter because I know. Lightning bolts went up my arm. Lightning bolt, I'm telling you. I felt such a sensation just by touching his hand. And I'm like, oh my gosh. What the? And, you know, I'm thinking, is this what love is? I mean, this overwhelming sensation just overtook me. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'd never thought about him in a romantic way. Never. We're just friends. But it all changed. It all changed after that lightning bolt. So we talked and talked. And he declared his love for me. And that he wanted to marry me. I was floored. I knew I'd been praying for a way out of this marriage. But I'm like, God, did you send this man to me? Is this what I'm supposed to do? So, I packed up the kids' stuff. I didn't take my son. I took my girls. And I moved in. And I filed for divorce. And as soon as I got my divorce, we were married. And the first 6 months were so good. I mean, he was strict, and he was a neat freak. So my girls had a little transitioning because Mom had always cleaned their rooms, made their beds, done everything for them, you know. But this new stepfather said, nope, you need to take some responsibility and do things on your own. I mean, when I'd go to work, he'd take them to school, pick them up from school. I mean, he was great. But the girls had transition because he was strict. Well, he had a daughter. I'd met his daughter when she was 4. She was 6 now. We were married. And I loved that little girl to death. She moved in with us. She called me Mom. And I called her my daughter. We never used the word stepmother or stepdaughter in that house. That was my girl. He had been married before and gotten divorced, and he'd gotten custody of his daughter, but his parents had raised her until we got married. Then she moved in with us. And I didn't get my son much because my son had ADHD and was a little on the wild side. And he was very hard to control when he had his tantrums and whatnot. And my present husband couldn't handle that much disruption. But I'd go over and see him and talk to him, and he'd come over at least once a month to stay a few days. So, things were good. Then, after that 6-month honeymoon period, I'm like, oh my gosh, not again. This is my 3rd marriage. I'm 30 years old. Come on now. 30 years old. 3rd marriage. Well, he got stricter and stricter. And then the worst thing that can happen in a relationship, he got a jealous streak. At that time, I was office manager. I was salaried, so therefore I was working a lot of hours, and I was doing medical billing. So, if any of you know, when you're in charge of money and AR and accounts payable at the end of the month, when you've got to close that month, you stay there until everything is done. Well, some mornings I wouldn't come home till 4 a.m. because I'd be working, trying to get that close in. I mean, if I was lucky on the close night, I got home at 1. And this was just at the end of the month. Well, he got a jealous streak. And it was so bad. I couldn't go to the grocery store. If he felt I was at the grocery store too long, oh, I would get just drilled and drilled. And then it became physical. I can't tell you how many times he's punched me and knocked me down, how many nosebleeds I'd had. I just can't tell you. He didn't drink. He didn't smoke. And he didn't do drugs. But he also didn't work very much. And I was carrying the house. And I had my girls active in church. They were active in school. They were active in soccer. And they were on the travel team. And for those of you that had children or grandchildren on a travel team, you know you travel. I'd go from New Jersey to North Carolina. We would just travel all over Virginia. And he acted like he couldn't trust me to walk across the street. And unfortunately, when he got jealous, I had to pay the price. Things were bad. It got to the point I'd get off work, I'd go in the bedroom and stay there and watch TV or do whatever. And he'd be in the rest of the whole house. He got the whole house. I just let him have it. And that went on until my oldest daughter, she graduated high school in 2000. And she was going off to college. I was so happy. I was so proud of that little girl. And I knew in her life, I'd given her every opportunity that I could, done everything for her. So, we sent her off to college. And it was one of the happiest days of my life, moving her in that dorm room. Well, I still had 2 girls at home. My other daughter was a junior, and my youngest daughter was in middle school. So, went back, tried to hang in there. I got tired of getting hit. Point blank, straight up and down. Got tired of getting hit. I knew I was the breadwinner. I was the one making the money. So I could go off. So I packed up. I took my daughter. I had to leave my other daughter because that was his daughter. She wasn't biologically mine, even though in my heart, in my head, she was mine. And I moved out. Now, I would get my youngest daughter on weekends. And it was summertime. She spent the whole summer with me. And then that Christmas season, she stayed with me. And I was taking her back home to her father. And he asked me, could I come in the house and talk? I'm like, okay, is this something about our youngest or this and that? So, went in there and talked. He poured his heart out. We'd been separated for a year, almost a year, from January to, this was, like December 30th, so. And he made all these promises and all these apologies for everything he'd done and da-da-da. Can't live without me. Can't make it without me. So, I'm at a turning point. I'm 32 years old. Been married 3 times. 3 abusive husbands. A lot of trials. A lot of tribulations. And then I have this man who is physically the worst of all 3 of my husbands. And he's swearing he's going to change and da-da-da. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. So at that point, I had to pray and do a lot of soul searching to see where my life was going to go. So, I'm 32 years old. I've left my 3rd husband, and that's where I'm going to stop today. It's been an hour. I'm looking up at the clock. And next week, I will continue from 32 to present day. Now, the things I went through, the things I put up with, I'm not asking for your pity. I don't want you to say I'm sorry. I want you to say, God is awesome. God let you go through all that and brought you through. That's what I want you to say. I want you to give glory to God like I do every day when I wake up. Thinking back of all the things. At this point, let's look. From the time I was born to the time I was 32, all the things he brought me through. All the things he did for me. I mean, if that is not a miracle, if that does not show God's love and grace, I don't know what does. I mean, he did it for me. He can do it for you. You just have to have faith. Then you have to thank him. Give God his glory. I mean, that's the least we can do. He deserves it for all he does for us. So, I'm going to stop there. But I will tell you of my story. Part 1 and part 2 were nothing compared to part 3 next week. From the time I was 32 to the time I was 59 was the hardest part of my entire life. It tested me, my strength, my willpower, my stamina, more than any period of my entire life. So, if you think we went through something, you ain't been through nothing yet. The hardest is yet to come. So, all that thought, I want to leave you on a note that God is awesome. He got me through what I went through. He can get you through it. Trust me. Trust me. Just have faith in God. He can get you through it. God is awesome. I'm a living testimony to his awesomeness. So, I'm going to close on a scripture because you know it's my important part of every single video is a scripture that God finds for us and puts on our heart. It brings me such joy, and I love to share His Word. So, let's see what we're reading today. Encouragement, reading from Psalms. Psalms chapter 7, verse 40. It's awesome. This verse ties right in with my story. My shield is God, Most High, who saves the upright in heart. My shield is God Most High, who saves the upright in heart. Psalm 7:10. All you have to do is have faith. Believe in God. Turn your life to Him. Let Him guide you. Let Him give you the joy. We all deserve joy, and God wants to give it to all of us. And He has given it to me. Did I deserve it? No. But I love Him, and I accepted His Son as my Savior. I accept His Word as Word, and I thank Him. I thank Him every day. And He has brought me to where I am now. I'm not crying because I'm sad. I'm crying because I'm happy. I'm happy that even though I've been through all the things I've been through, I'm at peace. I'm happy. I'm relieved. I am stress-free. I mean, I've got day to day. Don't get me wrong. Don't manipulate this. But I have such inner peace. And I'm good with what He brought me through. Because nobody said it'd be easy being a Christian, which you'll find out in part 3 next week. Being a Christian is hard. Standing up for God is hard because it's not always socially correct, politically correct. But the reward is worth so much. Inner peace and joy. So, Lord willing, we meet again at the next video. But until then, Genesis 31:49. The Lord watch between me and thee when we are absent from one another.